4 weeks ago, Grand Prix racing was jolted by the first driver fatalities in a dozen years. The tragedies threw the sport into confusion as drivers, teams, and officials sought to avoid the specter of broken bodies and broken hearts. Dramatic rules changes were put into immediate effect, altering the finely tuned aerodynamic balance of the cars and creating controversy that has shattered the solidarity of the Grand Prix community. Former champion Niki Lauda blames money.
The first problem I think in Formula One is that the commercial side is running Formula One. The commercial side is very important because without that Formula One would not be where it is. So you have to divide it. You have to say to Bernie, you worry about the commercial side, that's it. And then somebody else, either the FIA or part of the drivers, have to form a group to take care of safety. But if you mix it up, you will never succeed because commercial will always take over.
Today, the drivers will fight for more than a race victory. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. In far western Spain lies the fiercely independently minded province of Catalunya, home to Barcelona, the Olympic city of 1992, and home to round 5 of the Formula One World Driving Championship. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. This has been a most dramatic week in Formula One. Back on Tuesday, Pedro Lamy crashed his new specification Lotus at Silverstone in England, breaking both his legs. The team blamed the new rules affecting the cars. On Wednesday, Benetton team director Flavio Briatore wrote a blistering letter to FIA President Max Mosley saying he could not validate the safety of his cars. On Thursday, the FIA said if that is the case, Benetton will not be allowed to compete this weekend. Meanwhile, the drivers met, and Derek Daly will have more on that. On Friday, 8 teams joined Benetton in boycotting the opening practice as officials huddled with the teams. The result of that meeting, the new rule set to come online beginning in Canada in 2 weeks will be suspended if the teams can come up with a better alternative, and the track here in Barcelona was modified. On Saturday, Andrea Montermini, sitting in with the SimTech team, also crashed and will spend the weekend in a hospital. Derek Daly, the drivers are ready to take matters into their own hands.
And this was the shocking scene 4 weeks ago when Ayrton Senna died in the Williams after making heavy contact with this totally unprotected concrete wall. Senna's savage crash has prompted solidarity among the drivers and the resurrection of the Grand Prix Drivers Association. Not content with waiting for the governing bodies to make rule changes, the new GPDA is taking matters of driver safety into their own hands. They want safer racetracks. In fact, the 5-hour meeting here threatened to boycott this race unless immediate track changes were made, which they were. If the aerodynamic download is reduced, they also want less horsepower. But more than anything else, they want the technical changes only based on solid engineering facts, not on knee-jerk emotional decisions.
Now, all of this is backdrop for today's race, but make no mistake about it, there is a struggle for power going on within Formula One, and we'll have more to say about all of this in just a moment. This ESPN Speed World presentation is brought to you by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. By Mazda. Mazda, it just feels right. And by your local Yamaha dealer, who invites you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles. Welcome back to northeastern Spain, to the Circuit de Catalunya, site of today's Grand Prix of Spain. Bob Varsha, Derek Daly with you. Now the drivers must put aside all of the controversy of the last week and get set to go about the very serious business of driving these race cars. Now let's check out the starting lineup with the help of our Yamaha starting grid. On the pole for the second straight race, going for 5 in a row to match Nigel Mansell's record, Michael Schumacher of Germany in the Benetton Ford. Next to him, his first front row start of the year, Damon Hill of Great Britain in the Williams, 0.6 of a second behind. Row 2 will be Mika Hakkinen of Finland and the constantly improving McLaren Peugeot. Next to him, J.J. Leto, fastest car in the warm-up over Team Matt Schumacher for the Benetton team. On row 3 will be Rubens Barrichello of Brazil, his best qualifying performance ever, as it is for the Jordan Hart team. Next to him, Jean Alesi of France in the Ferrari. Row 4 will be Gerhard Berger in the second Ferrari and Martin Brundle of Great Britain in the second McLaren. Row 5 will be 23-year-old David Coulthard, the test driver for the Williams team, trying to replace Ayrton Senna, and I doubt that he'll be able to do that. Next to him, Ukio Katayama of Japan and the constantly improving Tyrrell Yamaha. Row 6, Mark Blundell of Great Britain in the second Tyrrell. Next to Heinz-Harald Freundsen, who will have no teammate for the Sauber Mercedes team today. Row 7 will be Eddie Irvine of Ireland, back in the Jordan Hart, next to the Minardi of Michele Alboreto. Row 8 will be Gianni Morbidelli of Italy in the footwork and the Lotus of Frenchman Eric Comas. Row 9 will be Olivier Beretta of Monaco in the Larousse, next to the Minardi of Italian Pierluigi Martini. Row 10 will be Olivier Penny of France in the Leger, next to his teammate Eric Bernard. Row 11, Christian Fittipaldi of Brazil in the footwork and Johnny Herbert in the new Lotus machine. Row 12 will be Alessandro Zanardi of Italy in the older Lotus, next to the Simtek Ford of David Brabham of Australia. On the 13th and final row, Bertrand Gachot of France in the Pacific Ilmor, next to his teammate and countryman, Paul Belmondo. Andrea Montarmini with the Simtek team did not qualify. He is apparently all right, but doctors will keep him in the hospital this weekend. Here's a look at the points coming into the weekend. Michael Schumacher perfect through 4 races, 40 points over Gerhard Berger with 10, followed by a tie between Damon Hill and Rubens Barrichello. Now let's take a look at the impact that Michael Schumacher has had on Benetton's performance over the years, Derek.
See here, I know timing is everything, but Schumacher's success and the combination of Benetton has produced a phenomenal success ratio compared to the years that they had been in Formula One. Remember, they started a long time ago as the Tolman team.
Gerhard Berger provided the newly named Benetton team with a victory on Pirelli tires in Mexico City a few years ago, but as you can see, Michael Schumacher has had a huge impact. Now take a look at the competitiveness of Formula One over the first 4 races. Michael Schumacher's margin of victory at Brazil, where he nearly lapped the field, 1:46 seconds. At the Pacific Grand Prix in Aida, Japan, 1:15, he lapped all but the podium cars. But in San Marino, it was down to under a minute, and at Monaco, just 32 seconds. The average thus far, 1:07 seconds, but it is coming down as the other teams try to draw close to Benetton and Schumacher. Final preparations being made on the grid. Derek Daly, tell us a little about the Circuit de Catalunya.
The racetrack here is 2.7 miles long, and now it's also has an interesting variety of high and low speed corners, elevation changes, and high speed straight line speeds here now. Lots of downforce is usually the key here, but with a 25% reduction in downforce because of the new rule changes, the power on exits of some of the corners have become very tricky. Right there was the new GPDA temporary chicane that will be a no-pass zone throughout this race. And even with the smooth surface here, Goodyear still expects as many as 2 or even 3 tire changes.
The racetrack is very hard on tires. Here's a look at our post-time race conditions. The temperature 80 degrees. As you can see, very little wind, but very high humidity. There has been rain on this race, 2 of the last 3 years, but we do not anticipate any rain today. The racetrack was built 4 years ago, and basically it's been in the process of being finished ever since. Every year there are new improvements to the circuit, and we should point out that the drivers have all saluted the organizers here at Barcelona throughout the weekend as being very helpful, listening to the comments and criticisms the drivers had, and doing their utmost to put those criticisms into effect. The result has been the chicane right there to the left of your screen. Those tires bundled and placed on the racetrack. The drivers are very concerned, Derek, about what will happen if someone hits those tires. They'll scatter them everywhere.
And what they'll do is bring out the safety car. The first practice session on Friday, that was so narrow, they had to stop the session, widen that chicane, and then restart again. This is one of the immediate changes they made almost overnight because of the 5-hour driver change, and one of the Larousse cars already in trouble.
Looks like an engine explosion for Olivier Beretta in the Larousse Ford. And that's a terrific disappointment for him. You see lots of empty seats in the background. This is a very expensive race. Tickets up there between $175 and $200. And the race here has never drawn particularly well here in Spain. Oh, what a tough break for Beretta.
End of the day, there is so much preparation goes on here, and he doesn't even make it out onto the grid. Now, as we go on here, you can see lots of the technical changes now made to these cars because of the rule changes. You'll notice that McLaren has the side air deflectors back. Benetton still have theirs, but they're now two-piece deflectors. Remember, the diffusers are gone from the back, and the front wings have been trimmed down to the back of the rear, the flap. There is no extension pieces going in behind the wheels.
25 cars rather than 26 will come to their places on the grid. As you can see, a high brow, a long run down to the first corner. It should be a very exciting start. We're ready for the red light. Turn it up and enjoy. Couple of Benettons rolling right at the start as the field bunches up. Schumacher, Hakkinen making a move on Damon Hill. One of the Ferraris coming up and using the pit lane exit. 5 wide down into turn 1 as Schumacher takes the early lead.
And Alesi got the big squeeze job there on the run down, but sanity prevailed. They all made enough room for each other. But Schumacher, 3 car lengths already. Look at Damon Hill under attack from Hakkinen.
And there's Martin Brundle trying to make up time in the mid-pack.
And that was both Jordan cars there, so Barrichello had a terrible start there all the way back with Eddie Irvine and Martin Brundle.
Recall at the first corner at Sandoval in Monaco 2 weeks ago when Mika Hakkinen got together with Damon Hill. Both drivers blamed the other. Of course, that's the natural order of things in motor racing, isn't it?
And there's the yellow flags. There is no passing through the Nissan chicane here with the tire barriers, and that will be the case all throughout the race.
Michael Schumacher begins to draw out. Heavy braking here, then a long left-hander. This is all very steeply uphill.
And look at Schumacher already. Less than 1 lap and just pulls out a couple of feet every corner here. Totally has controlled Formula One so far this year, and the same is continuing here.
This is La Caixa. This is where Andrea Montermini crashed on Saturday.
He lost it coming out there onto the grass, never took his foot off the power, and eventually lost it and went straight into the guardrail, that concrete wall on the right-hand side.
There's a close look at Mika Hakkinen as the McLaren Peugeot effort seeks to try to come to terms with Benetton Ford, and they seem to be accomplishing that, getting closer all the time.
As the cars exit the corners from the rear, you can see the diffuser. It's been cut way back, and that has reduced the downforce by as much as 25% from these cars. The drivers are not happy at the moment because it makes the cars a lot more difficult to drive. And even without the chicane, there's the yellow flags again, but with the addition of this chicane, they are some 3.5 or 4 seconds slower than last year.
That chicane does look tight. It was modified several times during the weekend as the drivers tried to find a setup that worked best for them in slowing the cars. Here's another look at the start. You see on the second row there, good rolling start there for J.J. Leto.
But watch row 3. Watch John Alesi tries to go down the pit lane. Here it is here from the front. There's the green. Alesi goes down. Look at this. Almost on the grass. Almost into the pit lane. And thankfully they left enough room for him as they got into the braking zone.
Our pictures coming to us from Spanish Broadcasting today. High downforce here despite the high speeds of this racetrack. The qualifying lap for Michael Schumacher averaged just under 130 miles an hour. Fully 5 seconds slower than Alain Prost's pole time of a year ago. That, of course, due to the reduced downforce on these cars and the chicane that was added. For perspective, consider that at Monaco 2 weeks ago, Schumacher was 2 seconds under Prost's record. And David Coulthard up into 6th spot. Boy, he is carrying lots of pressure this weekend, stepping into the shoes of the late Ayrton Senna with the Williams team. Your leader is Michael Schumacher as they complete lap number 3 here in Barcelona. And we'll be back with more live coverage of the Grand Prix of Spain. Welcome back live to the Circuit de Catalunya. Bob Varsha and Derek Daly with you for the Grand Prix of Spain. There is a look at an onboard camera on the Ferrari of Jean Alesi, running in 3rd place, looking back at the Benetton of J.J. Leto, who is under fire from the Williams-Renault of David Coulthard, the young Scotsman having a great race here today. You're riding with David Coulthard now, just 23 years of age, his first Grand Prix start coming under tremendous pressure. Now, moments ago, while we were in commercial, this is what happened to Paul Belmondo.
And this is the Pacific car, the new team struggling to get the type of speed that Jordan as a new team demonstrated on its first season. But Belmondo now out of the race. You can see there the Benetton double deflectors on the side. See the big one at the front? Then it goes down to a much smaller one. The keen eye will also, you see here Schumacher fastest lap already, but the keen eye will also notice that Williams, for the first time, have gone to that side air deflector. What it does, it wraps the air around the side pod and then sends it under the car in a smoother fashion and a more directed fashion to actually help create more downforce. Quick flick through the GPDA chicane, as we've named it, then the Nissan chicane. And on a long shot, you'll see a wall on the left-hand side. That was the worrying wall for the drivers. That's why they instigated that tire barrier.
And with good reason. Zanardi's crash in a high-speed corner at Silverstone last week was fairly savage. The car broke in half. The tub containing the driver, excuse me, not Zanardi, but Pedro Lamy. Zanardi sits in for him today. The tub containing the driver flew over a wall and wound up in a spectator tunnel. So Pedro Lamy, although he did suffer badly broken legs, all in all, was lucky to survive that crash. And it was just one of several aerodynamic failures that teams were reporting as a result of their struggle to come to terms with the new specifications.
Exactly. That goes back to what we said at the top of the show. There were as many as 9 rear wing failures during testing. Now you ask why? Well, when they took the diffuser off, the turbulent air now at the back of the car was affecting the underside of the rear wing. Also, oh no, one of the Minardi's out. That's Alboreto. Alboreto, an early man out, also in the gravel trap. But I mentioned the rear wing. Also, because of the downforce reduction under the car, they bolted on as much rear wing as possible. Hence the failures, and of course a tragic failure for Pedro Lamy.
I don't think we can overstate how hard the teams have had to work to come to terms with these new aerodynamic modifications to the car, moving the center of pressure under the car. A Formula One car, Derek, is such a delicately balanced racing machine. Michael Andretti told us about it time after time last year. The cars are so sensitive to changes. To lop off that diffuser exit where all the hot air coming out of the engine is managed, and to take off those front wing end plates really poses problems. Here's another look at Michele Alboreto's day coming to a conclusion.
Difficult to see whether he got into trouble under the braking zone, but he didn't actually make it through that gravel trap, so they're going to have to get a tow truck or some sort of a tow vehicle out there to drag him out of that gravel trap.
This is the battle for second place. Damon Hill with Mika Hakkinen just behind him, and there just ahead of the Rothmans on the blue side pod. You see those extra wings added.
Of course, it was McLaren who appeared with those early last year, and they were such an awkward-looking piece. People thought, what on earth are they? Suddenly, they became fashionable. Benetton had them, and in fact, they've retained them ever since McLaren appeared with them early last year. McLaren went away from them on the original specification with the Peugeot engine, but now they're back. This is Mika Hakkinen on board. Great sound from that Peugeot V10. Just listen. See how tight that is? There's the wall on the right side.
While this battle goes on, there goes Michael Schumacher over the brow of the hill. He is pulling away by nearly a second a lap from this fight for second place. Speaking of driver substitutions, Andrea De Cesaris fans out there will be glad to know De Cesaris has signed a deal to drive the Sauber Mercedes, replacing Carl Wendlinger for the second half of the season. Or actually more than that, he will begin in 2 weeks' time in Canada.
14,500 rows from the Peugeot V10 down this long straight. There's David Coulthard now all the way up with JJ Leto. David Coulthard was to drive in the Formula 3000 race here. He has a contract for the season, but obviously now, for somebody so young, just delighted. This is JJ Leto to take up the Williams opportunity. Look at the way he cocks his head. Incredibly successful Ford V8 Z-Tech engine powering JJ Leto.
Now you're on board the Ferrari. This is Jean Alesi's machine with Leto just behind him and Coulthard behind Leto. Now we have some pit action. Not sure who that is coming back onto the racetrack under that Lakaja bridge. This battle continues. Alesi, Leto, and Coulthard with another good fight coming up behind.
That's Barrichello and Martin Brundle just behind this group. Barrichello still trying to recover from that terrible start, having been fifth on the grid. Huge celebration by Eddie Jordan after qualifying at Barrichello's best ever qualifying.
Out front, Michael Schumacher continues to draw away from Hill, Hakkinen, Alesi, Leto, and Coulthard. We'll be right back live. Welcome back to the Grand Prix of Spain. The rain in Spain has been Williams drivers, at least here in Barcelona, where Alain Prost last year and the 2 years before that, Nigel Mansell took the victories. And the Spanish Grand Prix was held previously at Jerez de la Frontera in southern Spain. Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna were the previous winners. Right now, Michael Schumacher is going for a possible fifth straight victory to tie Nigel Mansell's record for consecutive wins to begin a season. That was in 1992 when Nigel took the world title. This is Martin Brundle in the red and white McLaren trying to overhaul young Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Hart.
Barrichello is 7th and Martin Brundle is in 8th place. Brundle had difficulty this weekend. He said he's finding it difficult to get the right balance between aggression and balance. See that? Just missed that chicane at the curb, hit it, clipped it, moved over 2 or 3 feet and back in again to the apex. But Martin not just quite finding that sweet spot balance between overdriving the car and just going to the critical edge to get maximum from the car. He doesn't believe he's getting maximum from the car yet.
The old expression, the harder I try, the slower I go. On board now. I believe this is Schumacher's car. These are the Ford Electronics telemetry numbers. RPM on the upper horizontal bar, accelerator position as a percentage on the lower bar. Second gear through that GPDA added chicane. Now up through the gearbox, speed in kilometers per hour on the right, multiply by 0.6 to get a rough estimate of miles per hour.
How dominant is Schumacher here? He's over a second a lap quicker than the whole field. Over 10 seconds a lead in less than 10 laps. How quickly the gears change here. Oh, first gear. See how close those tires are? That chicane alone has slowed the circuit down 2 seconds, and the downforce has slowed the circuit down 3 seconds. That's why almost a 5-second a lap difference between pole last year, pole this year.
A lap at Barcelona with Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, this battle continues. Alesi in the red Ferrari. Leto, or Jota, as he's known in Spanish.
Well, Damon Hill's under heavy pressure here. The Peugeot V10. Oh, that's just a fake. That is just a fake to say to Damon, I'm right here. Damon hasn't had the best weekend here, although it's the first time he's qualified on the front row of the grid this year. He's been off the road 3 different times, twice on Friday, and he went off the road again this morning in the warm-up. He flew off into the gravel trap. So some mistakes for Damon Hill that he needs to correct, but you can see, well, we don't even need to see the graph. He's all over him right now. But Mika Hakkinen ever closer to a win for that Peugeot V10.
At the end of that front straightaway, I flashed briefly on the race from 1992 when the men in those 2 cars were Nigel Mansell for Williams and Ayrton Senna for McLaren. How quickly things have changed.
This could be here that J.J. Leto is in fact being slowed down by the Ferrari. If J.J. Leto can find his way past Alesi, he may drag David Coulthard with him, and then he may have half a chance to catch up to Mika Hakkinen.
Ferrari was one of the 5 teams that took to the track on Friday. They are the only team that has been involved in every race of the World Championship, and they are a stubborn group. Ferrari, Sauber, Minardi, Tyrrell, and LaRousse all went out. The Formula Constructors Association President Bernie Ecclestone took a bit of swipe at those teams in a press conference regarding the controversy here this weekend. He said the serious people in Formula One met during the first practice. The people who are not serious went out to practice.
Oh, look at David Coulthard, has a little look down the inside. Remember now, J.J. Leto was the fastest man this morning in the warm-up on full tank, so we know he has a good setup. And David Coulthard was 4th fastest in the morning warm-up. So I think when they displace Alesi here, which looks like it, no, not happen here, I think they're gonna be away from him.
Zone is still a bit of a ways away. We'll take a quick time out and be back to tell you what happened. Back live at the Grand Prix of Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. This is J.J. Leto trying desperately to get around Jean Alesi's Ferrari. He is definitely holding up the train here.
Great in-car camera shots here, particularly as J.J. Leto flies through that tire chicane. But Alesi is in defensive mode at the moment, because watch his entry under the braking zones to some of these corners.
Mika Hakkinen, 3rd place car, is in the pits. Quick stop for McLaren. There is a pit lane speed limit in effect once again this weekend, as you see Hakkinen virtually crawling out of the pits. Normally he'd be at about 130 miles an hour by now. A very modern and wide and smooth pit lane here at Barcelona, but they are required to stay under 80 kilometers an hour, about 50 miles an hour roughly.
So Mika Hakkinen makes the first tactical move, being the first of the front runners to make the pit stop, and Ferrari are now ready for one of their cars. We can only presume it's Alesi, but earlier Berger got himself in trouble when he flew off and went through one of the sand traps.
Low point on the course right here, then an astonishing acceleration uphill through these 2 right-handers.
Now watch the tires here. Zip, zip. Oh, inches is all they have as they go through that tire barrier. Remember, it's a no-pass zone. Even if the yellow flags are not there, that is an impossible passing area anyway.
Looking back at the car you just rode with, and you saw Rubens Barrichello and Martin Brundle beginning to join this train now. Just over the brow of this hill, and this right-hander is the pit in. We'll see if Alesi takes it. Nope.
Remember the last 5-car train you saw in Barcelona being led by a Ferrari? Brings back many, many great memories of Gilles Villeneuve and the turbocharged Ferrari, an ill-handling monster that he managed to hold off the long train. Coulthard is in, and Villeneuve went on to win the race. The first ever Formula One pit stop for David Coulthard. Oh, he stalls it. He stalls it. Oh, David, it is a learning curve, I know, but this is such a critical mistake for David Coulthard. I hope he can fire the thing up again. He gets it going.
And loses it again. These cars can be very difficult to start when they're hot and they stall.
Can he get it in gear? He can't get it in gear. That's the trouble. As soon as he engages the gear, he stalls it again.
Oh, what a tough break for David Coulthard, who was having such a great race. Meanwhile, the battles go on without him. Alesi and Leto still locked in each other's grip. Coming up on the slower car now, that's Eric Bernard in the Ligier. The Ligier team will be purchased by Benetton, along with those all-important Renault engines, should Renault agree to stay with the team. Now there's David Coulthard, who finally got started after a rather desultory 30-second or so pit stop.
3 full stalls. Doesn't 50 miles an hour look so slow? And then as soon as he gets past that sign, just bangs on the throttle and gets some wheel spin and away he goes. But essentially, his competitive run is over, but he did give a good account of himself before that pit stop.
Plenty of racing still to come. We've already lost 3. I'll make that 4 cars. Ukio Katayama is in the gravel trap in the Tyrrell. Now this is Martin Brundle's first stop. Oh, he's up on the cam there.
That's what you got to do. Keep it running. Keep it going. Katayama's out. It's all over. Mark Blundell had a good run here, but again got out-qualified by Katayama to the surprise of everybody, particularly within that team.
Yep, there's Katayama pulling over. He had exited the corner. Something must have broken on the car.
Well, it'll be a little bit easier to go back to Uncle Ken now and tell him what happened. But Barrichello, who had been slowly catching the Ferrari and Benetton of Alesi and Leto, is now, you can see, well within striking distance. And he had Martin Brundle behind him. Now I believe he has Eddie Irvine behind him. Yeah, both Jordans running together here.
Once more, oh, it looks like J.J. Leto will take it in.
If you can't pass him, get into the pit lane, get on fresh tires, and that may give you that nice piece of clean road to get yourself underway at full speed.
Here is Leto. Looks like Eddie Irvine is bringing the Jordan in behind him. A little flash of orange on that helmet. About 20 men in the pit lane on a Formula One pit stop, out in about 7.5. Imagine what the Wood brothers would do with 20 guys on a NASCAR pit stop. Jordan team being careful with Eddie Irvine, back from that 3-race suspension and one brief sojourn as an ESPN pit reporter in Monaco.
The problem with pit stops is they use carbon fiber clutch discs, which means they're either on or off. So when you sit there and your foot's on the clutch, you engage a gear, you better have enough revs when you drop the clutch, because it will immediately grab. It doesn't slip like you're used to in a normal road car. That's what makes these pit stops so difficult sometimes to exit from. Schumacher, you see there, continues to set faster and faster faster laps. Of course, it won't be a lap record. Well, it may be a technical lap record because of the new racetrack changes. But Damon Hill now comes in.
A camera mounted on a crewman. I wonder where they got that idea.
Well, imagine that. Our boys from NASCAR would be thrilled to see that. We didn't see any lug nuts flying around. Boy, doesn't that look slow. How many times have we seen a F1 cars exit at 150 miles an hour and just marvel that there was no accidents and be shocked at the danger levels. And when Berger's car flew across the racetrack last year, exiting the pits, I think the alarm bells went up as a lazy makes a nice clean stop.
There is David Coulthard pounding around after that terrible stop when the car stalled and he couldn't get it restarted briefly. There will be more driver changes to come. Andrea Montermini, who had the big crash yesterday and will be in hospital, was to have driven the Simtech in Canada. Whether or not we'll get young Frenchman Jean-Marc Gounon in the car, he was supposed to take it over for the second half of the season. Montermini was supposed to drive it in Canada. So we may have yet another new face in Formula One in 2 weeks' time.
And Roberto Moreno left Indianapolis last week to go and drive the Simtech. And for whatever reason, his deal never did get worked out. But we're back on board with Michael Schumacher. See the left hand? Activates the automatic down change. That signals the engine to start down changing through the gearbox.
Very slow section of the track. Now the uphill portion up to the corner known as the Banque de Sabadell.
GPDA chicane. Nissan chicane. And he's on his way.
One of the Lotuses put down a lap.
Johnny Herbert's Lotus, the new 109, which had so little running here because they basically said they would use this as a test session, having had so many structural failures with that new car. In fact, both into the pit lane, Schumacher and Herbert.
The pit lane chicane.
No need to rush here. He has so much in hand over everybody else. You don't need to be spectacular. Just come in, get a good job done, and exit nice and safely.
Notice the larger front wings. There were long end plates that extended around the front wheels, but as you can see, they have been chopped off under the new rules.
Identical pit stops, obviously, for Benetton and Lotus. They both come in at the same time and they exit at the same time. I bet they'd like to finish at the same time.
I know Johnny Herbert would.
Yeah.
Poor Johnny's been struggling so hard. He's a man on a lot of short lists for better drives in Formula One, if you believe the rumors. McLaren wanted him a little bit earlier this year, and in fact, Johnny Herbert reportedly went to the Lotus team. He said, please let me go take the drive. They would not, and eventually it went to Martin Brundle. Michael Schumacher leads easily. We'll be back with more live coverage of the Grand Prix of Spain in just a moment. Memorial Day weekend will be a big one for baseball here on ESPN. Beginning tonight, Sunday Night Baseball, featuring Cecil Fielder and the Detroit Tigers visiting the Metrodome to face Kirby Puckett and the Minnesota Twins live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Baseball tonight here on ESPN. I'm Bob Varsha along with Derek Daly as the battle rages in Barcelona, Spain. David Coulthard and the Williams running in 18th after that long pit stop goes out of your picture. But the question, Derek, what is going on with Michael Schumacher? He was passed by that Lotus that he exited the pits with, and he just doesn't seem to be getting up to full speed.
Well, unless he is quite happy that he is in total control here, we have seen the most unusual pictures while you were away at commercial. The Lotus passed Schumacher. Brundle passed him. In fact, Brundle got in a side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel, knockdown drag-out with Schumacher, passed him, and then went on his way. So I can only presume that Schumacher has this thing so well in hand, he's quite prepared to just relax a little bit. Now earlier, the only Simtech in the field, David Brabham, had this harmless spin. You see the yellow flags come out immediately, but the Simtech team going through a very trying initial season in Grand Prix racing.
Listen to this car. I'm not sure he's shifting at all. I don't think he can get it out of gear, Derek.
Now what? Here it is here. Look at this. David Coulthard pulls out and blows past Schumacher. That's Brundle behind. He got to him very quickly. Schumacher may be in trouble.
There's a Ligier pit stop.
We haven't seen a gear change yet.
Pit entry coming up.
No gear changing. There's the other Williams pass. That must be Damon Hill.
Oh, excuse me, the pit entry is not coming up. That was the chicane. He's got half of the length of the lap to go.
He's in trouble. We can eavesdrop right as it happens. No gear changing.
Now you can bet that the Ford engineers are looking at the telemetry, trying to figure out what is happening and what they can do. Meanwhile, in the pits, this would be Alessandro Zanardi in the Lotus pit.
Well, how long can Schumacher last? Or is Mika Hakkinen in the Peugeot V10 about to lead this race and be in the strongest position yet to maybe win this thing?
What a turnabout that would be. Mika Hakkinen takes the lead. There was a bit of an embarrassing difference of opinion in the McLaren pits this year. Ron Dennis, who is used to having world champions on his driving strength, saying McLaren will win races this year. Meanwhile, the Peugeot engine engineers were saying, well, we'd just like to do well this year and maybe challenge for victories next year. That is not the McLaren way of doing things. And if Mika Hakkinen can win this race, his first Grand Prix victory, what a step it would be for this McLaren Peugeot team. There's the revised running order. Hakkinen, Hill, Schumacher, Leto, Morbidelli, and lots of pit stops still to come, so this thing is anything but over. We have confirmation that Michael Schumacher is locked in fifth gear.
Well, 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 what a turn of events here. So 5 Grand Prix wins in a row at the start of a season. Now out the window for Michael Schumacher, so Mansell's record is safe. But Mika Hakkinen now will have to fend off Damon Hill. Damon Hill so spectacular here last year, and he didn't quite pull it off when the engine blew up. But he's going to go into attack mode here now against Mika Hakkinen.
Gianni Morbidelli's footwork. Mugen Honda is pulled into the garage, the end of his day. So terrific attrition going on now at the Grand Prix of Spain, but no dropout more dramatic than that of Michael Schumacher, the 4-time winner this year and runaway points leader, suddenly has seen the balloon pop. Mika Hakkinen is in a position to win, but there is still a very long way to go. We're not even at halfway. With 25 of 65 laps completed at the Grand Prix of Spain, Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren has taken over the lead with Damon Hill in second. Michael Schumacher, the 4-time winner this year, stuck in gear, but he apparently will try to tough it out. At the center of your picture, the engineers looking at the screens, the man in the middle of that group, Flavio Briatore, who wrote a letter to the FIA, the governing body for world motorsport, saying, you are badly mismanaging Formula One. These changes instituted after the crashes at Imola have happened too quickly. There is Niki Lauda in the red hat, the former 3-time world champion, who has taken up the lead among the drivers to have a voice in their own destinies when it comes to safety issues in Formula One.
You can hear the engine scream here. I don't know how long that's going to last, but you mentioned Niki Lauda. 12 years ago, I was part of the last Grand Prix Drivers Association strike in South Africa, and that was just over licensing, and again it was led by Niki Lauda. And if they were prepared to boycott over licenses, they were definitely prepared to boycott over driver safety. But Niki Lauda, who ironically had wanted Ayrton Senna to head up the Safety Commission, now will head it up with Michael Schumacher.
An interesting rumor has floated this weekend in Barcelona that one of the reasons that FIA President Max Mosley pushed so hard for those draconian changes to the Formula One aerodynamic specification was that there were elements within the Italian government that wanted to ban motor racing in Italy as a result of the events at Imola. And it was thought that Max Mosley was making a bit of a preemptive strike on behalf of Formula One to provide ammunition to the opponents of that movement within the Italian government.
Oh, Berger is out. Berger, we just watched Brundle trying to attack Jean Alesi, and Berger comes to the conclusion of his terrible weekend. Has not been happy. with the new rule changes. Never got happy with this car at all. Thought a loose condition, didn't like it. And now it doesn't make any difference. It's all over. But look at Brundle. Yet again, as the race goes on, Brundle always seems to get stronger and stronger. And the lazy we saw struggle earlier on, he is going to have his hands full now with Martin Brundle.
There is Ron Dennis at the middle of your screen. The man voted the best manager in all of British business. Has had an absolutely astonishing success with the McLaren team that has definitely not always been at the top of Formula One racing. Now there is Mark Blundell closing up on Martin Brundle's car. And
what a great run by Mark Blundell. He spun off on his final qualifying lap and only qualified just outside the top 10. Believed he had a lot more in the car. Actually apologized to his team, saying, "I'm sorry I let you down." But look at this now. He is right in the thick of it, right behind Martin Brundle. There's the defensive driving line again by Alesi. He pulls down to the inside, under braking, exactly what he did earlier with J.J. Leto.
Gerhard Berger makes the walk back. The word on Gianni Morbidelli's footwork is the car is healthy, but the fuel valve is broken, and as a result, they cannot put any more fuel in the car, so they had to park it. Traffic in the chicane. How quickly things can change.
Look at Berger has a black armband he carries on his uniform, obviously in remembrance of fallen heroes, and particularly for Berger, friends.
In trying to deal with the ongoing problem of neck and head injuries in Formula One, Ferrari, McLaren, and Williams have all opted for a unique resource. They've made phone calls to Atlanta, Georgia, to the shops of Jim Downing. Downing, for 10 years, has been working and promoting a special device called the HANDS, head and neck restraint. It's basically like a large set of football shoulder pads that the driver wears over his shoulders and chest, and it's attached by means of straps and cables to the helmet so that the driver retains freedom of movement with the helmet in normal conditions. But under heavy G-loadings, when the helmet wants to just about rip the driver's head off, it is restrained. And Ferrari has several of these devices from Jim Downing's Atlanta shops now. If you watch our coverage of the IMSA WSC race live from Lime Rock, Connecticut tomorrow, you'll see Jim Downing wearing the device. Gerhard Berger now owns one.
Mika Häkkinen comes in. This is strange. This is his second tire stop. He was first in, and now he's another early pit stop. He may be going for as many as 3 tire stops. Goodyear said earlier on there will be at least 2 and maybe as many as 3. Mika Häkkinen looks as if he's going the 3-tire route.
And no matter what happens today, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company will pick up their 300th Formula One Grand Prix victory. They are the only tire supplier in Formula One, but it hasn't always been that way. Congratulations to Leo Mel and everybody at Goodyear on their 300th win today.
Both Williams cars running together here. Of course, David Coulthard a lap down at the moment.
There's Pierluigi Martini in the minority. All we know about Gerhard Berger's car is that something broke at the rear. It's suspected to be a suspension failure on that car.
David Brabham recovered from the spin we saw him have earlier on. Minardi doesn't look happy. A little bit of a bounce or a shimmy there under braking. And then both Williams cars in line, in tandem, right behind them. Damon Hill probably would like to get by David Coulthard, but he doesn't look as if he has enough horsepower or strength to make a legitimate attack on Häkkinen at the moment. David Coulthard, you see, recovering, now running 12th. Imagine David Coulthard first tested a Formula One car when he was only 19 years old. Who says there's no path for true talent as you come up the ladder? Now, Damon Hill obviously is shown in the lead because of Häkkinen's last pit stop. And David Coulthard does the gentlemanly thing, particularly for someone who new to a team, and he moves over and lets Damon Hill go through.
There you see the gap. Hill to Schumacher. About 11 seconds, but as Derek mentioned, we expect as many as 3 pit stops from the leading cars in this race, and that will continue to juggle the order as it was designed to do.
On the side shots, just look at how exposed the driver's head, neck, and shoulders are. The cockpits are so low in these cars. That's one of the things I do want to change. And in fact, Sauber, as you watch David Brown there, the engineer for so many world champions, Senna, Prost, Senna, and now David Coulthard. But Sauber arrived here with the cockpit sides actually built up on their car, the first team to show advances in that particular area of design of the car to try and protect the driver's head.
Now, in all of the confusion as to what the rules will be for the upcoming Grand Prix in Canada in 2 weeks' time, well, the teams, frankly, are not certain. They're supposed to have the cockpit sides built up. They are supposed to be using standard pump fuel in Montreal, and they're also supposed to remove the air boxes that put ram air into the engine. We'll talk about that a little more when we come back. Back live at Barcelona, Spain, the Grand Prix of Spain being led by Damon Hill. Everything we said earlier about Mika Hakkinen, should he win this race, goes double for Hill. A victory would mean so much to this Williams team. Now, in the garage there, it looks like David Coulthard has parked his Williams Renault. That is a tough break. There is Adrian Newey. Did some of his aerodynamic schooling in the IndyCar series here in the United States. He is the aerodynamicist on the Williams Renault team, and a man who has agonized over the last 4 weeks, trying to get the car up to speed while at the same time mourning the death of Ayrton Senna. As Derek Daly mentioned earlier, engineer Dave Brown had world champions in succession: Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost, and Ayrton Senna. And now he engineers David Coulthard. Now you're on board with Michael Schumacher, who continues to motor around and somehow has managed to keep this car in the points.
This is a titanic effort here, because without enough gears, you can see he uses the torque of the engine up high. Now, if it's in fifth gear, remember we saw him earlier on use first gear corners? I'm not sure if he's not maybe in fourth gear. Because look, the engine screams and then he seems to back off a little bit. But David Coulthard, red face from the heat in that car, explains to the Williams engineers, that's Patrick Head off to the left-hand side there in the sunglasses, who got to see Ayrton Senna's car for the first time after the crash just last Thursday, as Schumacher goes down the inside of Brabham in the Simtek car.
Talk about adding insult to injury. I can lap you in one gear, pal.
Look at this. He's only 9 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen. And if he's going this slow, he probably doesn't need another tire stop. This is interesting.
Gearbox problems for David Coulthard.
This sounds like one of the variomatic gearboxes that Patrick Head worked on. No gear changing at all. Just use the engine rev band. Oh, look at this. Pushes it so hard, sticks the outside wheel just off the edge of the racetrack. So he is trying to make up in handling what he lacks in gears in this car here. This is a remarkable run, though.
Absolutely astonishing. Michael Schumacher, the running order right now through the top 12. Hill, Schumacher, Hakkinen, Leto. Oh, there is Bertrand Gachot Pacific. The rear wing askew. He has tagged something. Behind Hakkinen, J.J. Leto, Martin Brundle, Jean Alesi, Mark Blundell, Christian Fittipaldi, Eddie Irvine, and Rubens Barrichello, your top 10 as Barrichello slips back. Pierluigi Martini is 11th and Johnny Herbert 12th.
Of course, I mentioned Schumacher may not need a pit stop. It doesn't make any difference. He doesn't have any low gears, so he can't stop in the pits anyway. So he's going to be forced to finish with the tires he has on the car and with the fuel he has in the car, or else he's going to be in very, very deep trouble. Look at this. Over the curb again. He's pushing it all the way to the limit. Oh, you know what this is? This is a rear wing failure. This is a structural failure that we have seen. This might be number 10 structural failure now. See the rear wing collapse? See the center section broke away? This has been one of the serious structural problems that has arisen after they've taken these diffusers away. It has already put Pedro Lamy in hospital with a broken arm and 2 broken legs. Tyrrell and McLaren, I believe, also had structural failures under testing at Silverstone. That's what the GPDA are worried about, and that was the reason why they said they want changes. Fittipaldi is out. His day is now over in the second footwork car, so definitely no points for them. But the GPDA does not want emotional, panic decisions made to these cars because it is potentially too dangerous. Here's Christian. He knows he's in trouble. His hand is off the steering wheel, opening his visor. And I think he simply moves it off the road through the gravel trap. And he doesn't even make it through the gravel trap. Obviously something very serious, very terminal, and wants to get it off the racetrack as soon as possible. But Damon Hill, comfortable at the moment, and Schumacher still only has 5th gear.
Well, imagine any moment we'll see Mika Hakkinen come thumping around to retake second place. Interesting drive today by Michael Schumacher, who has never been out of the points in his 3 previous visits to this circuit in Catalunya. There's Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell. Ken Tyrrell, one of the team owners who sent his crew into action on Friday morning when 9 teams boycotted the first practice. Michael Schumacher continues to fight the good fight. Damon Hill leads. We expect to see Schumacher going backwards through the field shortly. I don't know why it hasn't happened already. Back live at the Grand Prix of Spain. Bob Varsha, Derek Daly, glad to have you with us. We've got a brief look at Damon Hill, the race leader right now. There is Rubens Barrichello, Eddie Irvine, coming up behind one of the Ferraris.
You can clearly see this Ferrari has not been in attack mode at all day. Look at the Jordan comes up behind him, creeps up through the corners. The Jordan is a faster car, and the Lazy, quite frankly, is hanging on here. It's over. Irvine in a flash just goes by. Oh, that's it. Pit lane entrance.
Pit lane for Jean Alesi. Gerhard Berger and the other Ferrari is already out of the race.
So Barrichello and Eddie Irvine run in tandem here in both Jordan cars.
Meanwhile, the Ferrari team goes to work on Jean Alesi's machine.
Alesi said it's just so difficult to set this car up here. They put on much bigger front wings for this event here. It helped them get more downforce, but of course then the engine overheated. So it was a catch-22 situation. They needed the wings, but the engine couldn't live. So the difficulty went all the way through the morning warm-up this morning, and Alesi didn't even go to the line with any semblance of confidence at all.
Look at that rear suspension on the Ferrari. Very little movement out of these suspensions in Formula One. Meanwhile, back up front, Damon Hill thunders along, hoping to get a victory to lift the spirits of the Williams team in the aftermath of Ayrton Senna's tragic and fatal crash, much as his father, the late Graham Hill, did for the Lotus team following the death of another Formula One legend, Jimmy Clark. This is Eric Bernard in Ligier. Now notice that airbox above his head. That's one of the changes that is scheduled to take place in Canada in 2 weeks. Unless the teams can somehow come up with a compromise with the FIA, they will remove that airbox to take away the ram air effect into the engine that helps produce horsepower.
And how much horsepower does it produce? As much as 4 or 5% will be the loss if they just simply take away that airbox. But on board now with Damon Hill, leading for the very first time this year. Somebody needs to take over the mantle of a true world-class team leader for this team. Damon Hill has that opportunity, but he must prove that he is strong enough physically and mentally and has the talent to assume that role.
Rumors swirled that the Newman Haas IndyCar team was offered as much as $20 million to release Nigel Mansell to come back to the Williams team. It didn't happen. But that tells you something about how desperate the operation is to get an ace back in their car. Now, perhaps someday Damon Hill will be an ace in the mold of a Mansell or a Prost or a Senna or perhaps a Schumacher. But in contemporary Formula One, you often don't have that much time.
That's the Repsol hairpin they just went down to, and that's down to second gear. And the second Benetton company, that's J.J. Leto. Look, working in the driver's cockpit. What's wrong in there?
A reflection off of the press area above the pit lane. Our friend from Telecinco in Spain giving us some fairly artsy, craftsy shots.
13.2, not the best pit stop we've seen. Another artsy, craftsy McLaren stop. We presume that was Martin Brundle.
Climbing the walls. Incidentally, the condition of Carl Wendlinger, the Sauber driver who was injured badly in a crash at the Grand Prix of Monaco 2 weeks ago, he is now taking solid food, and he is in what the doctors call a light coma. He is responding to commands to move his hands, blink his eyes, and so forth. And it's anticipated, as you see, Damon Hill dived for the pits. It's anticipated that Carl Wendlinger will be sent to a hospital in his native country, in Innsbruck, Austria, where doctors there will take over his care.
Now, a lot may unfold here because Damon Hill was only 10 seconds ahead of Schumacher. We don't know whether Schumacher can even attempt a pit stop or not. Remember, Häkkinen already has his second stop and Schumacher goes through. Schumacher is leading, and he only has fifth gear from what we understand in that Benetton.
We do not have control of our onboard cameras. Otherwise, it'd be my vote to sit in Michael Schumacher's car and watch him work whatever magic is going on out there. Now, here's a replay. Oop, looks like an engine loss here. That is one of the Jordans from the look of it.
Yes, it is.
Oh, out comes the steering wheel. Driver knew that was coming. J.J. Leto trying to get back up to speed. Oh, there is Schumacher. Excuse me, it's Schumacher, the new leader in this race, wearing number 5. How appropriate if all he has is fifth gear. Well, what an astonishing thing. Meanwhile, another Ligier pit stop.
Whether he still has gearbox trouble or not right now, we don't know. But his pace, even when we knew he had gearbox troubles when we rode inside the cockpit with him, his pace even then was quite astonishing.
You raised a good question, Derek. How much fuel can he have in the car? I can't imagine he could run the whole distance, assuming the team was planning 2 or 3 stops.
Of course, the advantage he does have is as soon as somebody sees Schumacher in their mirrors, they don't know he's in trouble. They automatically back off and let him go through.
Talk about taking on the entire field in Formula One with one hand tied behind your back. 5.6 second gap from Schumacher to Häkkinen last time through.
This is the downhill run.
Boy, clouded that curb. We should point out that in addition to the chicane, the Barcelona organizers had revamped the track on their own. They took out much of the curbing and added rumble strips so as not to launch the race cars. They've also added lots of tire barriers, water-filled cans along the concrete walls. Oh, now problems.
Look at this, look at this. He's in trouble. You just see that under braking, missed the turn-in point. Oh, look at this. He's in all sorts of trouble. There are tires in the pit lane for Schumacher. We can only presume that if he's in deep trouble, he's got to go to the pits. If he has no low gears, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know how he's going to get out of the pits. He doesn't elect to go in. But he is all over the place here.
One of the Lotuses is out.
Looks like Zanardi. Is it Herbert?
I saw a flash of orange on that helmet. Let's see. A big spin on the uphill right-hander. Yep, Johnny Herbert in the new Lotus 109.
Terrible weekend for Lotus, trying to recover from the terrible crash with Zanardi. This is the chicane. Under braking for the chicane, and it's Eddie Irvine. We saw Barrichello go off earlier. Irvine gets himself in all sorts of trouble, but I don't think he clipped the tires. If he did and he scattered those tires, we were in for a safety car. I don't think he hit them.
Johnny Herbert, who has suffered so much misfortune in his brief Formula One career.
And suffered so much injury in his brief Formula 3000 career. Still limps, still carries terrible results of the injuries at Brands Hatch on that terrible day when the car he drove broke in half, leaving his legs so exposed. It wasn't even in a Formula 1 car, but he made a remarkable recovery. And if you can remember his debut for Benetton in Brazil when he came home in 4th place, just a remarkable Formula 1 debut.
There's Mika Hakkinen, who has to be a little puzzled himself if they have any inclination that Michael Schumacher cannot change gear in his Ford. They're probably wondering, Mika, why can't you catch this guy?
and he'll know. I mean, everybody down the pit lane here will hear that Schumacher cannot change gear and will have passed that information onto their respective drivers. But it will be a puzzle for Hakkinen to know why he hasn't lapped them already.
Hey, Impin Yimini, I can only race the stretch of track in front of me. Don't tell me about guys halfway around the circuit having problems.
170 miles an hour through this long sweeping right-hander, then downhill to Repsol. Second gear corner. Oh, V10 screams. It's a Seat. S-E-A-T. Of course, Seat being the Spanish company that produces the Fiat car. So they just changed the first 2 letters and it means the same thing.
Repsol is the national Spanish gas and oil concern. You see often on race cars. Big supporters of motor racing, particularly Spanish drivers.
That Nissan chicane is now a 3rd gear acceleration point. It used to be an almost flat in 5th gear quick flick. It was incredibly dangerous, and that's why they demanded a change.
You saw the gap from Schumacher back to Hakkinen, just a couple of corners now. Hakkinen getting a little squirrely there under acceleration up the hill. Plunging downhill now and heading for the pits.
Well, Mika Hakkinen. I mean, there's one hand behind Schumacher's back already. He has him on the hook, and he's almost ready to reel him in. And suddenly he peels off for tire stop number 3.
Action in the Benetton pits. Can this be Schumacher?
Yes. Yeah. What gear is he in? Oh, the fight's on now. The fight is really on now. All he's got to do is get it roll, because all he needs is 50 miles an hour here. But there's Schumacher, slips the clutch 3 or 4 times, and now the chase is on. Hakkinen sets out after him.
What a performance by Michael Schumacher. After what you said earlier, Derek, as you watched Damon Hill, what you said earlier about Formula 1 clutches, all on or all off. The fact that Michael Schumacher could get that car into and out of the pit lane is amazing.
It also speaks well for the torque ability and the rev bound of that Zetec Ford V8 engine.
Michael Schumacher never out of the points here in Barcelona. Mika Hakkinen has never been in them, and there is Damon Hill looking for his first win of the year. Stay with us. Back live at the Grand Prix of Spain, there is Michael Schumacher, old 5th gear Michael, thundering around with his gearbox locked in place, running in 2nd place in an absolutely amazing drive. Mika Hakkinen is 3rd. You see him just coming through that temporary chicane in the background, so unless Mika Hakkinen has some kind of engine problems, we expect him to come to grips with Michael Schumacher very shortly.
It's not difficult to see that this is the most competitive Formula 1 race we've had this year. That was Damon Hill that was in your picture, Michael Schumacher, and then Hakkinen is less than 3 seconds behind. So for the first time this year, with less than 20 laps to go, the top 3 cars are all within striking distance here of this win. Schumacher was the strongest. Now he has one hand behind his back. Hakkinen is quicker than Schumacher from what we can see. We think he should be anyway. And of course Damon Hill holds the upper hand, but he's only had 2 pit stops.
This performance by Schumacher also says a lot for that Ford Zetec engine. It has basically been a one-trick pony since the gearbox locked up, and yet the power band seems to be wide enough that an artist like Schumacher is able to keep the car competitive against the best machines in the field. This is absolutely staggering. We are Past the halfway point, it's time for our Haviland race recap. Damon Hill is the leader. We've had 5 lead changes among Schumacher, Hakkinen, and Hill. Cars out of the race: Olivier Beretta, Ukio Katayama, David Coulthard in the Williams after a terrific Formula One debut. Michele Alboreto is out of the race, along with many others. Gianni Morbidelli was in the points when he dropped out in his footwork. Bertrand Gachot suffered a serious-looking rear wing failure. Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, Christian Fittipaldi, Rubens Barrichello, who went off into a gravel trap. Johnny Herbert, same problem in the Lotus. And that's our Haviland mid-race recap as you watch the red and white Marlboro McLaren of Mika Hakkinen of Finland.
I would really like to go back inside Schumacher's car if it was at all possible. I wish we had control of that, because this is remarkable. Oh, Hakkinen blows it up. It's over for Hakkinen. His chase is done. The Peugeot V10 in a huge, huge plume of smoke.
That'll kill a few mosquitoes.
There isn't a mosquito in sight in Spain after that.
Well, perhaps there were problems in that Peugeot engine for Mika Hakkinen, which might explain why he had trouble coming to terms with Schumacher. He saw J.J. Leto go by in that traffic. Comprehensive and a very quick engine explosion. It came off the corner and bang.
They do get closer to being ultimately competitive. I'm not sure they have their overheating problems fully solved. Martin Brundle had a tremendous run for Peugeot at Monaco, and Hakkinen heading for another good one, but it lets Schumacher off the hook here.
Michael Schumacher, 7.5 seconds behind Damon Hill. If you're Damon Hill now, you're wondering if you should take another pit stop, if you need one, because Schumacher is having an absolutely extraordinary race. Should he take the victory, Damon Hill would vault up into second place in points, if I'm not mistaken, behind Schumacher. But if Schumacher can finish second, it could be the turning point in a possible world championship for him. Crippled as the car is, if he can get on the podium today, he's going to develop a reputation as Mr. Bulletproof out here. It is Hill, Schumacher, and Leto, 2 Benettons in the top 3. Back live at the Grand Prix of Spain, this is a Spanish television replay of a spin by Jean Alesi, who has now been lapped by race leader Damon Hill. Right there, that is Hill and Alesi as we return to live action. The running order: Hill, Schumacher, J.J. Leto, Martin Brundle, Mark Blundell, Jean Alesi, the top 6 points-paying positions. Then it's Pierluigi Martini, Eddie Irvine, Olivier Penny, and Eric Bernard rounding out the top 10.
Damon Hill so strong here last year. Threatened Prost for lap after lap and then had that terrible engine blow up, which ruined his day. But you can see 7 seconds comfortably over Schumacher, so he now knows Schumacher at this pace that Hill is running is not going to catch him. So if he doesn't make a mistake, Hill could control the rest of this race. Something interesting you might want to know about is the downforce in these cars. Adrian Newey told me today that the exhausts into the diffusers also creates downforce, because obviously it accelerates the air through the diffuser. Now the problem with that is, if ever you have the rear of the car step out of line, the obvious thing for the driver is to jump out of the power. Well, that in fact exaggerates your problem. So that is one of the difficulties of actually handling and setting up and controlling one of these Formula One cars that uses the diffuser so much to create downforce, and particularly when these cars are so pitch sensitive and have to run low to the ground to generate the type of downforce that they do.
Damon Hill trying to break a string of Ford victories in Grand Prix racing. I believe it's at 7 now. In fact, the last race not won by a Ford engine was the Grand Prix of Italy at Monza a year ago. The winner of that race, Damon Hill. We talked about the changes to this racetrack. Barcelona not the only one. The drivers have also looked ahead, and on the list needing changes, the next race at Canada, where they come over a brow and on to the straightaway that runs to the pits. Benetton pit stop here. That's J.J. Leto's car. And it's a long one.
It is longer than normal, but shorter than his 13-second stop that we saw earlier on. And again, look at that 50-mile-an-hour run.
Getting back to the racetracks, Silverstone in England is set to make changes. And Eau Rouge, perhaps the most daunting corner in all of motor racing. The drivers want changes made to it as well. So it's going to be an interesting year as we run out the season in Formula One. And we hope you'll be with us every step of the way on our World Tour for 1994. Whoops, problems at the chicane. Straight-lined it, did one of the Ligets.
And that's what we saw Eddie Irvine do earlier. Irvine got on the gravel trap, and instead of trying to make his way through and possibly damage the car on the tires, he elected to go straight through. You mentioned Silverstone. They're talking about redesigning the racetrack, not just inserting chicanes.
We'll be back with more live from Barcelona. We are back live in Barcelona, Spain. As you watch the World Feed graphics, there is J.J. Leto, number 6. He made a pit stop during our commercial break and moved himself. You did see J.J. Lowe make... Take over, Derek. I'm done.
Okay, back again with David Brabham just going through the picture, but look at the top of the picture here. That's the telltale story as J.J. Leto. Oh, is it Schumacher? No, it's Leto. J.J. Leto. Right after his pit stop, obviously something gone seriously wrong, and gives up his 4th place. So Schumacher's the one that's had to battle all the problems, and yet it's J.J. Leto that finally has to drop out of this race.
That will move everybody up a little bit. There goes one of the Ligets, followed by race leader Damon Hill.
They had to work so hard on the setup of this Williams here this weekend because Damon Hill in particular did not like the handling characteristics. When they came here, he said it has grip and suddenly it lets go and it has none. It didn't have that slide factor or the ability to slide and control the car that he was looking for. They worked tirelessly, particularly on the first day. We said earlier, flew off the road twice, flew off the road to the gravel trap in the warm-up this morning, but obviously eventually got it somewhere near to his liking, and is now, with 10 laps to go, is in control.
The question to be raised is, even if Damon Hill could win every race from now to the end of the year, and Michael Schumacher finished second in all of them, could Damon Hill catch Schumacher? The answer is yes, but the question is when he would catch him, and it would be a long way down the road. We've got a lot of racing to go. Through the chicane goes race leader Damon Hill, followed by Olivier Panis, the former Formula 3000 driver. Stay with us. Heavy attrition has reduced the field of 25 cars that started this race to 11 still running. Damon Hill leads Michael Schumacher. Martin Brundle looking for a podium finish here today. Mark Blundell with some well-earned points in prospect. Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, and Pierluigi Martini looking for some of his earliest points of the year.
If we're to believe that he still has the gearbox troubles, and we're trying to keep a keen ear. Oh, here we go. I think that's 5th gear. It's not top gear. Remarkable. He has no other gears in that car.
And hasn't had them for lap after lap. I think he lost them all just after his first pit stop. And he's been driving in one gear the entire way. Michael Schumacher is working miracles here today. He even got another pit stop in.
So we now know how to make Formula One competitive. Just take all the gears. That's a good rule change. Maybe Max will come up with that rule change for Canada. Schumacher can only use one gear for the duration of the race.
Oh, my. We have seen a little bit of everything today, including one car that did not make the starting grid, reducing our field to 25. That was Olivier Beretta's LaRousse.
Talk about rule changes. Rory Byrne, one of the designers of the Benetton with Ross Brawn and Frank Durney, said if the Hockenheim proposed rule changes have to go through with the stepped bottom, he said they would have to design a brand new car. He said, one, he doesn't think they can do it, and two, it will be an incredibly expensive exercise, and three, only several teams have the financial resources even to do something like that. So he hopes sanity will prevail and the Hockenheim rule packages will in fact be put aside for a later date. Even 1995 they thought was too early to reduce such a sweeping change.
Mark Blundell and Pierluigi Martini looking for their best finishes of the year thus far. We talked about the letter from Flavio Briatore of the Benetton team to FIA President Max Mosley. That was not the only one written. We've also obtained a copy of a letter from Ron Dennis with the McLaren team saying basically the same things, that Formula One is being mismanaged. The efforts to make it more financially effective have failed, that the aerodynamic decisions after the Imola crashes were made much too quickly. And yet Ron Dennis's letter has not been mentioned this weekend. The sparks have flown between the FIA, the Benetton team, and the rest of the pit lane. Michael Schumacher continues his improbable race, and we'll be back live to Spain. Back in Spain, there you see the leaderboard, but you also see a McLaren freshly arrived in the runoff. That would be Martin Brundle's car. He was running in third place. Here's what happened.
Oh, boom. Look at this, an explosion. I've never seen a hand grenade go off like that for a long time. Martin Brundle makes the same exit as his teammate Mika Hakkinen, and suddenly another podium finish right after his tremendous run at Monaco goes up in smoke and flames.
What is all that material flying around the racetrack? And look at the fire at the back of that machine.
I think that literally blew the bodywork apart underneath that car, and that's what we saw fly. What a terrible disappointment for Martin Brundle.
But what a joy for his countryman, Mark Blundell, in the Tyrrell, who now moves up to the podium. When was the last time we saw a Tyrrell up there? Jean Alesi will move into fourth, Pierluigi Martini to fifth. There's the Williams garage, Frank Williams seated with the headset and the black baseball cap on. This is his man Damon Hill with 5 laps remaining in the race.
This would be a tremendous emotional uplift for this Williams team, who will probably never recover from the loss of Ayrton Senna, but this will be a tremendous boost to the confidence of everybody in this team.
Derek, as a former Williams driver, I know you've been on the phone with Frank since the Senna incident. How does he sound to you?
Frank is very emotionally disturbed still, because Senna, not just was he a racing driver, he has been a friend, a true friend of Frank's for years. And it was a dream that Frank had to finally get Ayrton Senna in his team. And the irony of it is he never scored a single World Championship point for Frank. And in discussions about the incident with Frank, he stops every sentence very bluntly, very short. He's too upset to discuss it. You really need to go on and discuss more technical things about the car and the team to continue the conversation. But Frank very, very hurt, as everybody is. But Frank in particular, because of the friendship and the warm friendship he had with Ayrton Senna.
Martin Brundle dropping out of the race moves Eddie Irvine back from his banishment up into the points. What a moral victory that would be for Eddie and the Jordan team. They're becoming point scorers on a more regular basis this year.
And as we watch Damon Hill, a quick comment about Eddie Irvine. He was asked earlier this week, will you change your driving style now that you've been banned for 3 races? He said, absolutely not. Such is the belief in his own style, and really the belief that he wasn't 100% to blame, although he accepted the blame. He didn't think he needed to sit down and reevaluate his own driving style for continuing in Formula One.
We had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Eddie Irvine when he worked as our pit reporter at Monaco 2 weeks ago. The old English expression is, he is a regular bloke, but a very, very determined young man. Frank Williams watches, hoping for that first win of the year for his team. We'll be back. We are back as Damon Hill flashes onto the start-finish straightaway with 2 laps to go at the Grand Prix of Spain. There you see him running in second place. Michael Schumacher falling back, but he is driving with 1 gear in that car. Derek Daly, have you ever seen a performance like that in all your years in Formula One?
It is quite remarkable, not only that he can go this fast, but that the gearbox doesn't break or the engine doesn't break. But something else Rory Byrne told me this week about this car, it is remarkably easy to set up. And also, it's not pitch sensitive like the Williams car is, so the driver can actually throw the car around a lot more and not get into deep trouble. Now, we saw Schumacher clearly over the curbs, off the racetrack, on the grass, throwing this car around through the corners, and the driver-friendly feel that this car gives in situations like this allows him to be fast, and of course that's what allows him to be ultimately competitive at every racetrack he goes to.
So we might say that perhaps the Benetton team has been hurt less than anybody by the aerodynamic changes because their car is not that sensitive to them.
Right, but even before the aero changes, it was still a car that was not pitch sensitive. By pitch sensitive, I mean the front ride height pitches up and down as you go on the brakes or on the power. That's what upsets the aerodynamic balance of these Formula One cars. Most of them except Schumacher.
You see Eric Bernard having been put another lap down by race leader Damon Hill. For his part, Hill says the Williams car is like walking a tightrope. He can't slide the car. It's either got its grip or it doesn't. But he hasn't put a wheel wrong today, and he has survived all of the dramatic twists and turns of this race. On the final lap, Damon Hill looking for a victory.
And success breeds success. The Williams team badly needed a race win, and their new team leader badly needed a race win. This could be part of the change of this season in Formula One. If Damon Hill can just make it through this half a lap, I think it's great to see Williams claw their way back up again, because everybody was asking how long will Schumacher's tremendous reliability run continue with that new engine. Of course, we know the new engine is still reliable, but the gearbox was the thing that slightly let them down.
Will this race be a mere blip on Michael Schumacher's march to the Formula One World Championship this year? Or has perhaps Williams-Renault managed to close the gap? Hard to say, especially since J.J. Leto went off with a mechanical problem earlier in the race. Michael Schumacher, as Derek mentioned, struggled with the gearbox. It's going to be an interesting mid-season as we move on from here to Montreal, Canada, and the circuit Gilles Villeneuve for what should be another great race. A round of applause there from the pretty sparsely populated far grandstands. Damon Hill onto the front straightaway, awaiting the checkered flag with a fist in the air. What a lift for the Williams team. And what a lift for Damon Hill, who went to Monaco as a one-car team following Senna's tragic death. And he said that's something he doesn't want to do again. In addition to being the point man and facing the cameras discussing Senna's situation, he also had to go about setting up the race car. And give a thought for Michael Schumacher. After 4 straight wins, he won't get a 5th, but he has put in the most amazing drive of recent years in Formula One.
And Schumacher's arm goes in the air because that was a victory of sorts. I'm sure when he left after that first pit stop and that car got stuck in 5th gear, I'm sure Schumacher was convinced his day was over.
Mark Blundell, very unofficially now, will finish in 3rd place, providing a huge lift for Uncle Ken Tyrrell and his team. Jean Alesi, as you see that huge Ferrari flag on the right side of your screen, unofficially will finish 5th, and Pierluigi Martini 6th, but that remains to be seen as we await final timing and scoring. All in all, Derek, an astonishing race. We saw one of the Jordan cars making its way around with a bit of a wisp of smoke behind it, I believe. Now there is Mark Blundell.
And Uncle Ken will have a huge smile on his face, and I can guarantee you he's probably on the line punching the air like Blundell. A tremendous run for the Tyrrell and that Yamaha engine.
After a quarter century in Formula One, Ken Tyrrell appears to be getting his team back in shape. There is Frank Williams, who will no doubt be talking to the assembled media shortly. We'll take a quick time out and come back to wrap things up. Back live, you're looking at the world graphics and a replay of Damon Hill's drive to the checkered flag. Fortunately, there was no rain in Spain, but the Williams team maintains its reign atop the winners chart here at Barcelona for 4 straight years. The 4 Grands Prix of Spain held here at the Circuit de Catalunya, each time won by a Williams. And after the tremendous run Michael Schumacher has had this year, Eric Daly, I think everybody was a bit surprised to see Williams keep themselves atop the leaderboard.
They really were. Great to see Damon Hill able to stop and catch that Union Jack.
Here's a look at our unofficial rundown at the flag. Damon Hill over Michael Schumacher. Mark Blundell will take the podium, and a well-earned one. Jean Alesi with precious points for Ferrari, followed by Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi. And Eddie Irvine brings home 1 point for Eddie Jordan. Olivier Panis, Eric Bernard, good run for the Ligier team today. Alessandro Zanardi, after his huge crash in Belgium a year ago, comes back and drives well for Lotus. David Brabham in the Simtech, I believe that's their best performance of the year. Martin Brundle blew up spectacularly and dropped out, but he will be classified. JJ Laso also did not finish, but he will pick up 12th place. And as you look back through the rest of the field, virtually everyone else you will see dropped out of the race at one point or another. Good run for David Coulthard and the Williams team in his Formula One debut. And then the more disappointed men who dropped out very early in the race, including Olivier Beretta with the LaRousse team, who never took the green light. We have some more time available to us. We'll take a quick time out and return for more from Spain. Back at the Circuit de Catalunya, Damon Hill records his first victory of the 1994 season, ending a 4-victory string for German Michael Schumacher. We've already seen the results. The podium will be Hill, Schumacher, and Mark Blundell of Great Britain. Here's a look at the points following this 5th round of the Formula One World Championship. Schumacher with 46, but Damon Hill leaps up into 2nd place with 17, followed by Gerhard Berger, stuck on 10. Jean Alesi takes sole control of 4th place with 9, Rubens Barrichello with 7, and Martin Brundle with 6. In the Constructors' Championships, it is still all Benetton Ford over Ferrari, Williams-Renault, and Jordan Hart. But things are beginning to close up just a little bit as God Save the Queen plays in the background in honor of Damon Hill's victory here today. All in all, Derek Daly, quite an afternoon of motor racing.
And the end of the Ford V8 dominance in Formula One. Believe it or not, it is October last year, I believe, since the last Renault V10 engine win. And only 10 cars finished here, but the Renault V10 of Damon Hill just delighted. Gives it a kiss. But Mark Blundell is even happier.
We will have checkered flag coverage of this Grand Prix of Spain, and you'll want to see that. Check your local listings for checkered flag coverage of the Grand Prix of Spain. And the next stop on our Formula One World Tour will be in beautiful Montreal, Canada for the Grand Prix of Canada in 2 weeks' time on Sunday. Make sure you join us for that as well. The pit lane is turned over to the crowds to enjoy the weekend, and I hope you've enjoyed it with us. A happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone. I'm Bob Barsha for Derek Daly. Thanks for being with us. So long, everyone.